Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back to another live stream. Hope you guys are ready to have some fun, talk some numbers, everyone's favorite subject. We're going to talk about, what you need, how much you need, to move to Mexico, so on and so forth. And you guys already know how we do here. We like to get down into the nitty gritty. And again, today, we're going to be taking a tour of El Mercado Lucas de Galvez. So basically the big mercado out here in the middle of the city. Every Mexican city has a big mercado and then various small mercados all over the place. And again, if you are on a budget, this is probably where you're going to do a lot of your shopping. As you guys can see, we can get, look at that. David just bought, grade A chicken. He just bought he just bought himself, amazing chicken there.
Bruh.
As fresh as can be. In fact, I have one right here. Anyways, all right. Enough horsing around. I thought that's all we're doing here. Yeah, that's right. That's all we're doing here. Just horsing around. So anyways, so yeah, long story short, you can buy real chicken, you can buy fake chicken, you can buy a lot of local goods, you can buy, fruits, vegetables, you can get your knife sharpened, you can get your watch fixed, you can, all that for the most affordable price. Of course, you can go to the mall, you can go to the grocery store, you can go to many other places for, not just convenience, but also, well, maybe air conditioning and so on and so forth. And sure, you're going to be paying more for that convenience as well. So if cost cutting is one of your main objectives, when you're going to be out here, at least if, for the time being at the beginning, you're going to be shopping a lot in places like this. Because again, you can eat here, and, again, many mercados, they got taco stands, they got food stalls, they have all kinds of things, plus everything that you would need for a house they sell there, so just think of it like an open air walking Walmart, I guess. Anyway, shout out to everyone out there. And Mexiplans, oh, shout out to you. Hey, I'm still waiting on your email, brother. And you're asking, are you with Roy? I don't know who Roy is. That's David. That's my friend David. He makes appearances on the show all the time. In fact, he's helping me fix my electric bike at the moment. We had some issues that I broke a cable. Me and my clumsiness. So yeah, I had an issue with the bike, and we had to replace a cable, and he's helping me get it back together again. Humpty Dumpty fell from the wall. But anywho's, so today we're going to be talking cost. We're going to be talking, what does it take, really to not just live here, but move here? Because I know that's like a big question for many of you guys out here. So again, right there, you see David, he's just having some local fare. Again, you can just eat, for a few dollars, a few pesos. There are many such things that you can eat depending on what Mexican city you're in. It's going to depend on what kind of street food they have. Here in the Yucatan, they have things like kibis and those things like piedras, and they got like all kinds of little things. But long story short, it's just a very affordable meal that the working class, person eats out here. And again, just for a few dollars, a few pesos, you're eating. You can have your tummy filled with food, real food, not junk food. So it's just one of the many, advantages of living out here. So you can do that now. And, let's just, skip real quick. So look, that's a little close up of what he's eating there. Anyways, they're called piedras. And I remember when he was eating them, when, we were doing this, this video, he said, man, I think I chipped a tooth. I'm like, well, a piedra translates to rocks. So yeah, they're pretty hard, whatever he was eating. Okay, real quick, and just before we, get too deep into the walk here and into the conversation, I want to give you guys just a quick, bird's eye view of what we're going to be talking about. Because these are kind of like the usual cost, that I have out here, living with my wife. I've already been living out here 8 years, and I got my own, cost of living. And so this is an average of what my cost of living would be, which is, around $1,500. When I first moved here 8 years ago, my cost of living was like $700-800. It was just me by myself. I still didn't have a horse, I didn't have a dog, I didn't have a wife. And again, the inflation, still didn't hit. It was back in 2018. A lot of things have changed. And these are the things that we're going to be talking about today in the live stream. But as you guys can see, even today, it's still pretty manageable in a sense. All right. Again, it's just really going to depend on you and where you shop, where your, what your rent is going to be, and so on and so forth. Honestly, you can live on a lot less than this. But again, it's up to you and how frugal you are, and what you're, what you're willing to live with or not with, or whatever it is. Again, so that's what we're going to discuss and go deeper into today's episode. So, let's get back to the market here. Shout out to Henry with the $2 super chat. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. It's been very, very nice. All right, hold on a second. I got that. Oh man. So shout out to everyone out there. Look at that. We got Moondog, got his passport yesterday. Congratulations. Then what did he say? I don't know what he said at the airport. Let me know. Anyways, so shout out to everyone in the chat, and shout out to everyone out there. So look, the reality is that it's not just the cost of living when that you're going to have while you're here. The thing is that you're going to have a lot of cost, that you're going to incur to move out here. That's the thing too. A lot of people have to kind of consider that. And there's many, sorry, there's many things you got to consider as well. I've talked to you guys before, depending on who you are and what your lifestyle is, it's going to depend on what your costs are. On top of that, one thing that you have to consider is depending on your income. Some of you guys out there are on a fixed income. And if you're on a fixed income, well, that's going to vary a lot. What your budget is going to be. It's going to change all the time. And so you have to prepare accordingly. And so, there's many things you have to look into. But look, at the end of the day, just going back real quick to the numbers, so you can get a better bird's eye view. The reality is that I can really have my cost a lot lower. Okay. And there's many people out there that have cost a lot higher, but that would be the average. All right. Which would be, again, around 1,500 US, give or take. Honestly, it's a little more now because the exchange rate is not in our favor. But regardless, as you guys can see there in pesos, it's around 26, 27, 6, 7, but it's 26, 27,000 pesos. Okay. And if you think about, just two regular parents, okay, working two regular jobs, just regular jobs, okay, they can bring in more than that. Okay. And so if the two parents are working and they're just working normal, regular jobs, okay, and they're bringing in somewhere around, let's say, 16,000 pesos a month, all right, that's 32,000 pesos a month. And so, yes, both parents are working, but they definitely have not just enough, for the bills, but on top of that, to save. And in many cases, their rent is going to be a lot less. And they might not even have rent, okay? So, and we've talked about that, again, the advantages of a Mexican being in Mexico, and some of them, how they can, have, what is it like, they can have more access to home, to more access to housing than we might in the USA. I'm not saying it's easy. I know it's harder out here each and every day as well for the typical Mexican to get the housing that they were used to, but it's still very accessible compared, to what, most Americans, Canadians are dealing with when it pertains to housing. So look, long story short, that's something that's very manageable. Now, let's just say that one of the parents, all right, let's say the father, has a really good job and he's able to bring in 30, 40,000 pesos, which is the equivalent, again, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500 US dollars a month. Then they can live very comfortably, and the wife can stay home and take care of the kids or pursue something else, and so on and so forth. Okay. But even on this budget, it's manageable. It just depends on your living, what kind of things you want to have access to. And again, It's all going to depend on, you know, the individual as well. Some people have other bills, such as a car. Maybe they might have insurance for that car, but even then, those bills are very manageable. For example, you know, insurance out here is like around, you know, $250, $300 a year, okay, as opposed to, you know, you're paying half, you know, like that for every 2 weeks or every month in the USA for car insurance. All right, so I can go on, and so, you know, assuming, you know, people would, you know, have a car. But again, as you guys can see there, you know, on screen, we got rent. All right, we have internet, we have cell phones, water bill. All right, and it's not just the water bill to the house, it's also the water, you know what I mean, like let's say drinking water, you're gonna go get the big blue jugs of water, you know, propane gas, transportation, you know, the power bill. Again, that these things are going to vary depending on where you're living. In the Yucatan where I live, it's very hot, so I'm gonna have a higher power bill than if I was living in a cooler climate where I, you know, probably be paying for heating instead. And then the food, you know, food and toiletries, okay, you know, all those things, you know, that all that, you got to think about it. You know, you need paper to wipe your butt, you need the food to eat, food to pay, you know, food for the dog, etc., etc. You know, so long story short, you know what I mean, that, you know, that's basically give or take. Now, on top of that, you're gonna have other expenses. Let's say you want to go on date night, definitely you need to put away for savings, emergencies. Again, some of you guys might have medical situations, you know, where you might need to, you know, go to the doctor, pay for the doctor, etc., etc. You need to set aside for that. If you're working on your residency, well, you need to put aside money for your residency or your visa runs or whatever you know you're doing, and so on and so forth. You know, personal items, Amazon, whatever you need. And so again, everyone's going to be different, and everyone's going to be in different situations. I came out here with very little, and yet I was able to make it. So this is why I tell my story. I talk about these things. I give you kind of like a, you know, what is it? A base level understanding of the situation out here, and then it's up to you. Most of you guys are going to have a lot more resources than me, you know, when it comes, you know, to monetary and financials. You know, one of the things that I had, you know, working in my favor was that I spoke Spanish. All right, and you know, for me also, hard times or, you know, living frugally you know, was not something I was scared of. That's, you know, so to, you know, for me, the transition was a lot easier in many aspects than it might be for some of you guys out there. So, you know, there's all these little things you got to like look into. Well, I wanted to talk about this in another video or live stream or whatever, but, you know, I've been noticing that, you know, I see people leaving Mexico or saying Mexico's getting too expensive and so on and so forth. And, you know, the reality is that what I'm really looking at is that, look, Mexico's changed a lot, and the perception of Mexico's changed a lot, and Mexico's grown a lot in the last 10 years and more. And the reality is that, you know, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, nobody wanted to move to Mexico. Nobody cared about Mexico. It was just Mexico. And, you know, even though it might, you know, in many places, it didn't have all the bells and whistles it does today, still, it was a great place to live. But, you know, most people were very happy where they were at. And as the years have gone on, as crazier and crazier things have happened, well, you know, more people have been looking into moving to Mexico, moving to other countries, and so on and so forth. So as people have been moving out here, obviously it's going to be driving the cost up because, well, demand, you know, again, supply and demand. And so it's not just Americans and Canadians, it's people from all over the world moving out here for all kinds of reasons. And so you got to also consider that. Also, Mexico as a whole, Mexico itself is also, you know, it's not just growing, but it's building infrastructure. It's just bettering, you know, quality of life for everybody. It's you know, the whole country is just booming. Okay, and to me, you know, I see the boom is beginning. We're gonna see a lot more to come. And with all that, well, you're seeing, you know, obviously, you know, an uptick in the sense of, you know, now more people can afford things like Starbucks or going to McDonald's or going to the mall and so on. And so the reality is that this is the reality that a lot of Americans are having to face, is that when they say, you know, Mexico's too expensive, is that, no, Mexico's too expensive for you. You know, because the reality is that for the typical Mexican, you know, again, and not that, look, man, there's all what is it, financial levels, all kind of economic situations for every Mexican. But look, the reality is that most Mexicans, the majority, they're able to afford, this new lifestyle, this better lifestyle, and maybe you can't. Again, you got to consider, if you can't even afford it in the USA, right? What makes you think you're going to afford it here? Some of you guys are like, oh, I'm going to move to other countries, so I can get, some of these fancy things. You're not going to get those fancy things. They're not going to have them there, or so on and so forth. So there's like many things as to, what are you looking for? What do you really want? For some people, it's very simple. I just want to leave. I want some freedom. I want a better quality of life. I want, certain things. And, out here, Mexico's always going to be very affordable. Many countries are going to be affordable. But if you're looking for, a fancier lifestyle, if you're looking for a certain, trying to replicate, what you can't have in the USA anymore, and so on and so forth, what's going to cost you money? It's going to cost you money. All right. And the reality check is that a lot of Mexicans, the, middle class, upper middle class, and so on, well, they can afford it. They can, and I've shown it to you. Again, we're here at the market. Okay, this is just for the typical, normal Mexican. But I've gone up north, in this city, and I've gone to other cities, and I've shown you. And if you want, I can show you right now again. But I've shown you. You know what I mean? That the reality is that they live very fancy lives. They got, all kinds of fancy stuff that, they have access to that a lot of us in the U.S. don't. Everything, all kinds of things, all right? So not just mass transportation, but things like healthcare and so many things that even a lot of Mexicans, believe it or not, take for granted. And that's the thing, so it's just, Mexico is, might be too expensive for you, because a lot of people in the audience, might still have an idea of what Mexico used to be, you know what I mean? And the thing is that again, Mexico is in 2026. It's not 2018. It's not 2010. Also, your dollar is not worth the same. It doesn't buy as much. The peso is now stronger. All right. So not only the exchange rate not in your favor, in some cases, but on top of that, that's where you're seeing, because look, when I see the prices in pesos, a lot of times I'm like, man, this is very affordable. This is very nice. But when it translates to dollars, and then translates, to like, inflation and all this other stuff, is like, yeah, not all the time. It's not always, as affordable in dollars or Canadian dollars or whatever. And that's the thing. And so for a lot of Americans, they're coming to the sad reality that it's not like, oh, I'm going to move to another country and live like a king per se on, just a few bucks a month. No, the reality is that, you're going to be, if you embrace, the whole idea that, hey, I'm going to be an immigrant, I'm moving to another country, it's going to have its difficulties. I'm going to have to go through the long route to get my residency instead of just going to the consulate and, paying for it. Because that's really what it is. The reality is that that's a privilege, that you get to just go to the consulate and be able to show your financials, and they give you residency. I mean, come on. Think about it. Most people in every country, if you want to migrate to the country, you got to go through a process. That's going to take a while. It's going to cost money, and so on and so forth, in order for you to get your residency. And that's a hard hit that a lot of Americans, Canadians are starting to face. The fact that now, you're not expat per se. You can call yourself whatever you want, but you're immigrants. And you're going to have to deal with that. And especially if you don't have the resources, especially if, again, you're coming out here, just trying to, find that freedom, find a better life. Well, and guess what? You know what I mean? You're going to have to, deal with what every other immigrant has to deal with. And the reality check that you might not, if you're going to, you could definitely get a job out here. But are you willing to take the Mexican salary? And 99% of you are not. Other immigrants are moving from other, remember, a lot of immigrants are being kicked out of the USA. Where are they going? They're all coming here. A lot of them are coming here. So for reals, we're seeing a big influx in all kinds of immigrants. And the thing is like out here, you got to work. There's no, government assistance. There's none of that stuff. But again, if you're coming from Haiti, you're coming from Venezuela, you're coming from, you'll work. You'll do any one of these jobs that you're looking at right now. You do it with pride. Are you kidding me? You're like, man, are you kidding? Wow, this is awesome. What an opportunity. But one of you guys, you guys willing to come out here and do one of these jobs? No, most people are just saying, you know what? I just live on the street, live out of my car, get some government benefits, ride this out a little longer. You know, and that's the thing, you know what I mean? And so, and you got to get creative. You know, you're an immigrant now. You don't want to do something like, again, work at the market or whatever it is. Well, you know, you're going to get creative and find, again, you can understand that you also still have a privilege. You can work online, be a digital nomad, so on and so forth. So, and so the reality is that, you know, what's it going to really take for you to move out here? So like, for example, what did I have? I had $1,500 when I landed here. But how much did I really have in my pocket before I landed here? So when I was still in Los Angeles, before I came out here, I had $2,500 to my name. I'll never forget it because, you know, it just worked out, you know, anyways. And so my flight, my one-way flight to Merida, all right, was around $500, give or take. Give 500 something. And my 1 month stay and my Airbnb in El Centro, again, 8 years ago, I was the first person to stay in that Airbnb. Anywho's, I paid like 400 something. So it was $1,000 right there. All right, $1,000, all right, for the ticket and for my month Airbnb. And then I had $1,500 left in my name and I had to figure it out. And since I was a single guy, I wasn't looking for a mansion. I was just looking for something small, all right? So I can continue doing my work off my laptop and just survive out here with, you know, the gig jobs that I had back then. And in that month, I was able to find the place. Again, I've shown you a gazillion times in my videos and so on and so on. Anyways, I was able to find the place. And I was paying 3,500 pesos in rent. So 3,500, I'll tell you right now in dollars. I mean, but that was like around $200. Yeah, $200, whatever. Let's just say, okay. So it was $200 in rent. Okay? And that was my place. And so obviously, in order for me to get in that place, it was $200 rent. I needed a deposit, right? And I needed some other, I don't know, I forgot. But anyways, I was able to get in with like less than $500. And I had $1,000, again, to kind of live off of. And then as I had money trickling in from work, as I was starting to get settled in, got better internet, whatever. And I was able to slowly survive and figure it out. You know, again, I didn't have to get a job out here. I didn't have to, you know, do anything like that. I was just able to hustle and just, you know, work online and do little things here and there and just make enough. Making, again, just enough that I was doing like minimum wage in Mexico. But it was enough. And again, slowly but surely, I've been able to, you know, make my way up. But again, I don't make that much. I still don't make that much. I'm lucky if I bring in $1,500 a month. You know, and my bills sometimes are more than that. But again, I've already established credit out here. I've already got I'm already, you know, living a life out here. So it's like I'm able to, you know, deal with, you know, some months are better than others and so on and so forth. But $1,500 in the USA, that's not enough for even for rent. You know, even that lady, you saw she was, you saw her face, you know, she was like, bruh. So that's the thing, guys, you know what I mean? It's many little things like that. So for me, the transition was a lot easier than it might be for you, because the more of a downgrade you have to make from your life, the more difficult it's going to be. And, you know, for me, it wasn't a downgrade. It was not a downgrade. You know, for me, from the minute I landed in Mexico, it was an upgrade. And yet I came out here and I was rock bottom. You know, I was all the way at the bottom of the ladder. And, it was way better, you know what I mean? So much. And the reason I only make, you know, what I make a month is because I only do YouTube. That's all I do. You know what I mean? You know, things related around YouTube. That's it. All right. I don't have a job. I don't have anything like that. This is why I can make 100 videos a week. Okay. You know, because the reason I came out here was to follow my dream. And so look, right now, 8 years later, things are going to be more expensive. So for example, your plane ticket might be more expensive. Your Airbnb might be more expensive. Your rental might be more expensive. You follow me? But it's still doable. It just might be a little bit more. And these are the things you got to account for. So I was able to do it with $2,500 from the start. So you might need, I don't know, $4,000. You know, and again, you know, err on the side of caution. You know, I'm just giving you the rock bottom, living rock bottom, you know, eating beans, eggs, you know, whatever I can find in the market, that kind of stuff. All right, just trying to figure it out and survive. And again, you need an income. You need an income. Okay, no matter what that income is. So, and this is the thing too. One thing I'm realizing is that, I don't know. In my mind, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm dumb. I don't know. You know what I mean? Whatever. You're dumb. You're really dumb. All right, guy. All right, Lambo. I don't need your opinion. Anywho's, you're retarded too. Hey. Look, again, I don't know. I forgot what I was saying. Again, but you're dumb. That's why you lost your train of thought. What was they saying? Oh man. What was I gonna say? Oh man, I lost my train of thought. Ay. Forgot what I was gonna say. All right, well, I'll read some comments and maybe I'll remember. Oh, there you go. Travel Girl says, "Hey Jose, glad to catch your live. I just came from the optician you showed on one of your videos. Oh, awesome! And I was able to get the eye exam and the glasses and everything for, $60. There you go, USD. Yeah, so that's the thing too. So when I came out here, like I said, my life just was improved because in the USA." Okay, if you see my videos when I first came out here, you know what? I'll switch to that real quick. Might as well. We've already seen enough of the market. Real quick. So you guys can see my dumb ass when I got here. See if I can get that video up. I mean, it's a video I've shown a bunch of times. Where is it? Oh, man. Ba-ba-da. But anyways, but yeah, so for example, when I first got here, I had long hair. The reason I really had long hair was because I couldn't afford a haircut in the USA. And I just kept it long, as long until eventually I was be able to afford a haircut. What else? Hold on, let me see. Where is that? Oh, there it is. Is that it? Okay. So, same thing with the glasses. I'm at that point. I had I was already having vision problems because, again, the glasses that I had, were already falling apart. The lenses were scratched to oblivion. I couldn't see. And eventually one day I found him. He saved my life. And, he, again, for a few bucks, you know what I mean? Like, I was able, just like you, I was able to get me some glasses and so on and so forth. I was finally able to go see a doctor here for a few dollars. I was finally able to get blood tests, and I was able to, do so many things. And, it was just, again, a higher quality of life from day one. Even though, again, this is footage you're seeing from the beginning, okay? This is a video I've shown a lot, but this is all footage from the beginning. You see, look, that's me I'm in that same market. Not everything, not too much hasn't really changed in many aspects. And look at my long ass hair, you see? So, and I was able to get a haircut here for like $5, I think, or less, not $50. So, yeah, so yeah, look at all that long hair I had. Crazy, right? So, and so that's the thing, guys. You know what I mean? So, for me, I was able to do it on very little. And you can still do it for very little. Oh yeah, I remember what I was gonna say. Okay, so one thing that I've kind of realized, again, I had no idea because I'm just a dumbass, whatever. But one thing that I've realized as the years have gone on, as I've been making videos talking about these things on the channel, has been that, a lot of people have been, that have retired or retiring, have been sharing with me, what their retirement is. And it's been very humbling and surprising because, honestly, I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, I always thought in the back of my mind that, most people retiring, at the very least, at the very little, they'd be, making like around $1,500 a month. All right, give or take. And I don't know why I just thought that. And the reality is that couldn't be any far from the truth. In fact, again, through those years, my mom has also retired and so on and so forth. And I've seen how little she gets, because she gets, I think, like under $1,000 or something like that. And, my mom still has to work. I mean, she works, doing nails and stuff like that. You know what I mean? She does, she works, as a hairdresser, not hairdresser, but, nail technician or whatever. But look, long story short is that, she still has to work. Again, she wants to work. She loves what she does. Like I love what I do. But it's hilarious because instead of that money going, for her savings, for the grandkids, for whatever, she has to save it to make ends meet so that she can pay the is it property tax at the end of the year that sometimes me and my sister have to help her with, and I can go on and on. So let me see. So that's the thing, you know what I mean? Like that's the reality of it, So look, I know a lot of people that have been wanting to move out here, and they say, "Hey, I only have like $800 a month," and I'm like, man, I don't know. Again, maybe 8 years ago, 10 years ago was more doable. I don't know about these days, but look, if you are barely surviving in the USA, obviously you're going to be doing a lot better here. So that's the thing, you know what I mean? These are things that you need to, kind of like look. That's that's the Airbnb I was staying at. Look at my long hair. That's like a few days of me being here. And those are the conditions I was staying in. Maybe that's why it was so affordable. Whatever. Anyways, but yeah, those are the things. So obviously, if you have, let's say you do have kids, let's say you do have a family, let's say you have certain, well, you're gonna have, to make sure you got your, a secure income, in order to be able to support all that, and so on and so forth. If you're gonna come out here retired, you're gonna make sure you have a few bucks, at least $1,500 a month, at least. 1,000, maybe you can do 1,000. I mean, again, you're going to be doing okay on 1,000. I'm not saying you're not, but it's all going to depend on you and what your living conditions are going to be, and so on and so forth. But even if you're getting like 1,000, you're going to be able to have, you're not going to have the best living conditions per se, but but what is it compared to what you have in the USA? It's going to be a lot better. Again, you'll be able to have a nice little place, just to be able to afford your food, afford your doctors, afford your medicine, so on and so forth. So, yeah, because nowadays, again, even if you have Medicare, even if you're retired, you still got to pay for so many things. And so it's like, it's not even worth it anymore. So it's like, I get it, you know what I mean? But anyways, the more difficult aspect, the more you have a fixed income, if you just have that, that's going to be, probably making it more difficult for you as time goes on. That's it. You know what I mean? Now, of course, if you have a nice fixed income, you're making $2,000-3,000 a month or something like that. Yeah, you'll be doing fine out here. But I think, again, if you're at 1,000 a month, even 1,500 a month, you're going to be cutting it close. So, because the thing is that, for example, I don't have bills that you're going to have. If you're older, you're retired, you're going to have medical bills. I don't have that. All my medical bills are maintenance and emergencies. Every time I fall off my bike, I do something stupid. All right. So that's because of my age. But for a lot of you guys, well, you're going to need a lot more, for that. So that's the thing. It's like all these things that you got to, look into. Someone asked me, did I get travel insurance? No. I did not get travel insurance. I barely got out of the USA. So no, I did not get any travel insurance. What insurance? So no. Now, for most of you guys, sure, I recommend you get some travel insurance, catastrophic, whatever insurance, et cetera, because things could happen. And if you can afford it, yeah, why not? So. Oh, thank you, Moondog. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm very happy. Are you kidding me? I'm extremely happy, especially these days, since my other channel is going fairly well. It's great. And so, look, that's the thing, too. One thing I wanted to mention earlier was, something that I want to talk about at some point is that, a lot of people are, they're, they move to Mexico, they move abroad for the wrong reasons. My real reason is like, I was just looking for freedom. I wanted to breathe. I wanted a higher quality of life. I wanted to make my stupid videos, whatever. Everyone has a different situation. Some people, again, I don't know what you want to do. You might want to play with your train sets, whatever. Look, the point I'm making is that, out here you can do it. You can have a more chill, relaxed lifestyle. Again, a lot of people ask me, like, what do I do all day? What do I do? I get to do whatever I want every day, okay? And what is it that I want to do every day? I want to make videos, all right? I want to hang out with my wife, all right? I want to, make dinner sometimes, take care of just do whatever I want, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff. I want my responsibility to be that kind of stuff. You follow me? Or hold on a sec. Hold on. I got something outside. One sec. No, yeah, sorry. Expecting delivery. I thought I heard something outside. Christians out doing an art project. But anywho's, but that's the thing. And so like out here, I've been able to do that. I mean, come on, through the 8 years, I've been able to do what I love. And so that's the thing. And so as soon as I landed here, immediately I found everything I've always wanted. What did I want? I wanted to have a dignified life. I wanted to just be able to, live my life. I wanted to have access to healthcare if I needed it. I wanted to have access to food if I needed it. I wanted to have access to a roof, and all I had to do was work. Just regular work. Again, I didn't have to go out there and make tons of money. Look, this is the first place I ever rented. This is the place that I rented for $200. And by the way, this place, my friend is still living there, and he's paying I think like $250 now, give or take. So whatever. And by the way, I've shown you recently, places similar to this with a similar rent. Okay, maybe $300, give or take. All right. The thing about this place is that I had to pay my bills, my utility, but whatever. It wasn't a big of a deal. All right, but this is the place. This is the place that I got for $200. Plus, air conditioning. Meaning I had to pay. It came with air conditioning. I just had to pay for the power bill. How much do I spend on groceries a month? I spend around $500, $550 a month, again, between me and my wife. And this is including everything. Okay, everything. Meaning, all the meat that I want. I eat a lot of meat, all right? And I like high quality meat. I get mine straight from a butcher that gets the meat, to the restaurants out here, the fancy restaurants, all right? So anyways, I got meat, all the vegetables, whatever other stuff we buy. Also on top of that, whatchamacallit, like the toiletries, because a lot of people always forget to, add this to the equation, but you need, paper to wipe your butt. You need dog food. You need, dishwashing liquid. You need soap. You need a lot of things. All right. So there's many things. So long story short, when I put all that together, for me and her, it's $550, $600 a month. All right. And I'm shooting high on that. Okay. So, it could be a lot lower if I wanted it to be. And for a lot of you guys, let's say that you're by yourself, it's going to be a lot lower as well. Oh, by the way, this also includes eating out every once in a while. All right. Meaning, eating out sometimes once or twice a week. All right. And eating out, I don't mean going to a fancy restaurant. No, many times it's, we're going to the park so we can have, street tacos, or we're going to the little restaurant across the street or the little taco stand across the street. So we're spending, last night, didn't have time to cook, either of us. So I went to the taco stand not too far from here, and just for myself, all right, I spend less than $10, and I eat a lot. Okay, so I had multiple tacos, 4 tacos, and 2 sandwiches, a Coca-Cola, a Snickers bar, and some other, cookies. I eat once a day. Okay, so that's my one meal a day. But anyways, $10, all right, for all that. Okay, so, and I didn't finish all the cookies. Christian took them to, to her job site today. so that's the thing, guys. You know what I mean? And so, and honestly, I could be spending, $5 a day on food if I really wanted to. But again, I don't, I want to eat pretty good. I mean, again, I'm not eating prosciutto every day or anything like that. I'm not eating fancy food every day. But what I'm saying is that I, just high quality food. That's it. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of times we go to the market not necessarily to save money. It's just because it's better quality. We're just getting it straight from, as soon as it, gets to the city from wherever it's coming from. So I got editor says, I need help. Is $215K enough to buy a home and start a business? My house is under. Yeah, sure. Yeah. We've shown many houses, for a lot less than that. And if you want to, purchase a home, start a business in a home, you can do all that. A lot of people do that. They'll move to certain areas. Some of these homes that are, budget friendly, like less than 100K. And, some people, Mexicans, particularly, they'll open up a little business right out of their home and contribute to the community as well. So yeah, there's many things you could do. Yeah, so just keep checking out the channel. You know, I got tons of videos, you know, showing you. In fact, real quick, let's might as well. By the way, this was during the COVID days, all right? As you guys can see, I wasn't very compliant, you know. Anyways, okay, so you. Let's go to my website. I mean, so my YouTube page. So this is my YouTube page. So right there, on my YouTube page, you see right there where it says search. You know, right there, search. You know what I mean? You can just search for whatever. You know what I mean? Let's say at this point, let's say you want business. You know, just oh, see, I can't even type business. I know, because you're dumb. That's why. Anyways, all right. And you got videos on business, so on and so forth. You know, again, any subject, residency, whatever, the weather, you name it. But you can also just go to my videos right there, and you see, you know, I got house tours, you know, I got playlists, you know, where I just do a bunch of house tours. But see right there, 2-bedroom homes for $70K. Oh, sorry, right above my head there. You know, two-bedroom homes, $70K. And you can definitely start a business there if you want, and so on and so forth. And, you know, I got all the information there. So, by the way, all the information you need for anything, all right, is on my YouTube page. It's not just on my YouTube page, it's also on my website. So, you know, search on my website. Again, because I came out here with nothing and it was very difficult for me to, you know, make it all happen. Well, what I decided to do, again, since I wanted to make videos, is that I documented everything, and I basically, you know, am showing you everything, all right, that, you know, I did and I do. And so, long story short, if you're also on a super duper tight budget like me, you can get all the information you need for free. You know, just you gotta work, you know, you gotta dig through my videos, watch the videos, and, you know, get your own notepad, etc., etc. All the information's out there, okay? You gotta just, again, like I said, find it, dig for it, whatever, right? But with that being said, if for whatever reason, time is money, and you don't want to be spending all this time looking through all my videos, you know, looking for everything, you can simply just set up a consultation. All right, and you can set up a consultation with me, and we can have a one-on-one conversation, and you can ask me anything and everything you need, okay? Also, on top of that, if you're moving out here to Mérida, Yucatan, where I live, and you need help, you know, again, you know, we can provide all the help you need. We got Alejandra with Calypso Roots, and she can help you, you know, again, pick you up at the airport, help you find a rental, transportation, you know, what is it? Translating services. Let's say you need someone to help you, you know, go to the doctor, you know, translate for you, what, you know, whatever, you know, again, so many things and everything. And we got Jose, the lawyer, you know, Jose Novelo, you know, he can help you with housing, business, whatever you need, everything and everything. Again, the glasses, you know, shout out to you out there. Someone, you know, was telling me you went to get the glasses, the dentist. What else? You know, you want to buy land, and you want to build something on that land. Again, everything you need to know about living out here, all kinds of information. Again, just go to my website. All the links are down below, down in the whatchamacallit, in the description of this video and all videos, all right, and on my website and everywhere, all right. So again, josearteaga.com is a website. Again, also, if you want to contribute to the show, you want to help out the show, again, how this all functions is, again, we're all helping each other, okay? It's all a community here. So anytime someone sends me a donation, you know, goes on and buys a t-shirt, you know, whatever you do, again, you're helping out the show, okay? You're helping me keep the lights on. Also, I continue to help everyone else out there that needs that help, and so we're all helping each other out, and so on and so forth. But again, if you want to get something back for your donation or whatever it is, you can buy yourself a t-shirt. You know, many of these t-shirts you see me wear on the show all the time. I designed a few of these, and so on and so forth, and well, I designed all of them, really. But again, look at this one, a new one that I just got with all the Mayan symbols. I know you like that kind of stuff, so I made that. That's pretty cool. The Mayan alphabet, I mean, and so on and so forth. And again, all the links are on the website. You got the store, so on and so forth, all right? Oh yeah, and for some of you guys that are interested, Jose Novelo has a book, all right, that just came out, and if you're interested, yeah, the link is down below in the description, and it's everything you need, you know, foreigners, investors, legal guide to owning real estate in Mexico. As you guys can know, he's also a treasure trove of information. We're gonna have him on the show again soon to talk about real estate again, and obviously promote the book, you know, shameless plug. But again, if you're interested, check it out. Also, there's a coupon code to get $5 off in case you're interested in purchasing it. So got that as well. Again, he beat me to the punch, writing a book. Sheesh, I've been trying to write a book for years, and he beat me, he won. So anyways, and but I beat him at the t-shirt game. I got the best t-shirts in town, I'll tell you that. So yeah, anyways.
Bruh.
Let's get back to the... All right, where were we? So, but yeah, I've been out here for a long time, and that's the thing, guys. You know what I mean? That's one thing you got to realize as well, that, I came out here a long time ago. I came out here when it was still affordable. Again, it's still affordable today, but it was more affordable. I came out here under different conditions. I came out here, living a different life and wanting a different lifestyle. I eventually, again, a year and a half after being in here, I met my future wife. We eventually got married, and we've been happily married ever since. And she is also, thank God, she's very frugal. She's, in fact, she's always busting my chops, because I spend too much money, and so on and so forth. But yeah, that's the thing. And so, like, at the end of the day, yeah, you know what I mean? I'm constantly so grateful and so happy of the life that I have. Now, granted, I know fully well, you know what I mean? It took a lot of work, a lot of discipline, a lot of sacrifice. And here I am, and I gotta continue it. I gotta continue all this. But man, at the end of the day, compared to, everything that I experienced in the USA, it's, above and beyond better. It's just a better and quality of life. In fact, because of my other channel, I've had a lot of people just find me that haven't seen me in years. And they constantly say, man, you look a million times better. Man, is that really you? Wow, you look so healthy, so happy, so, just better. And by the way, I'm 44 years old, and man, it's just, it's incredible. Obviously, as we get older, you know how it is. But, things aren't the same. But man, at the end of the day, compared to like how I was in the US most of the time, so much healthier and so much happier and so much more grateful. And, I've been able to reinvent myself out here more than once. And man, you know what I mean? It's just, it's been amazing. But again, it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. I know a lot of you guys that have come out here and have, had very similar success or more success than me. But a lot of you guys, unfortunately, you'll come out here with a certain idea and you leave because you're not going to get this idea of what you're looking for. But again, for a lot, I don't know, I don't want to speak for everybody, but like I said, I've met, I want to say like almost 50-50. 50% of you guys that come out here, love it. You're just as happy as me. You already know, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, you're me. You're happy as a little schoolgirl, whatever. You're just very happy. Life is incredible out here. Not just in Mexico, just abroad, okay? But anywho's, with that being said, but many people come out here and it's like this false sense of happiness in a sense, you know what I mean? Like, they're not really happy. They're not really assimilated. They're not really, they're always with one foot out the door. That's the thing. Whenever you're an expat, or you consider yourself that, or, whatever, you have this like certain mindset that, I'm too good to work out here. I'm too good to, do all the things and jump through the hoops to get my immigration. I'm complaining all the time about it's expensive or this or that. That's the thing, like those are the people that just eventually don't last out here because they're just, on top of that, you're out here and it's almost like, you're looking at the US or Canada all the time, just hoping and praying that one day things will get better and you're, in the first flight out of here and back to where you came from. And many people just don't last because, again, they just, they can never get assimilated. They never get used to life out here. But for many people, that's my friend Dave. It's like my dad from another dimension, shout out to Dave. Are you kidding me? He loves and has embraced life out here just like me and so many others. That's why he's my friend. That's why we're homies, him and Tree and so many others that you've seen through the years in my videos. Because it's like, yeah, we're just... we're out here and it's like we get to live the life that we just cannot get back home at all, period. End of story. Maybe at one time, again, Dave is old enough to, remember a life, back in the US. It was very similar to how we live in Mexico still today. But life in the USA, Canada, whatever is unrecognizable these days. It's just this dystopia. Again, I talk about that on my other channel if you're interested. And you know what it is. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't be watching this channel, right? Or watching channels like this. But that's the thing. It's like, what are you really looking for? What are you looking for? What kind of life do you want? So for me, going back to like, by the way, I see you, D-Mal. Give me a second. But I'm on a roll here. But anyways, one thing, that a lot of people just don't get, when they ask me, like, oh, what do I do with my life? I mean, you're looking at it. You see what I do. I could wish I could make more adventure videos, but it doesn't, you guys don't like those videos that much. That's why I make the other videos to get the views or whatever. But the point is that, this is my life. I mean, this is the things that I do. And not just that, but I mean, I'm not looking to make a bunch of friends. I already got a bunch of friends online. I like to just be at home. Like I said, just do my thing and be able to just enjoy my life. Like you see right there, that's us at the beach. You don't need a lot of money. You can go and have a picnic. I'm not going to get harassed by the cops for having wine or having beer on a public beach. That kind of stuff, anywho's. It's just like a life, it's just the lifestyle out here. And for many that come out here, it's like a fresher breath air. It's like, finally, freedom. Finally, I get to live. Finally, I get to experience things, finally. But for a lot of people, it's not like that at all, because it's like, they don't want to have a picnic at the beach, They're too old for that. They don't want to go eat at this restaurant because it's like, it doesn't have air conditioning or whatever. I can go on and on. By the way, it does have air conditioning. It's a great restaurant. You can go there. The air conditioning is on the other side. But anyways, the point I'm making, is that there's just so many things like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, I'm not coming out here to live a fancy lifestyle. I'm coming out here. I'm living out here to live. I can live out here. It's a Thursday afternoon and I'm out here in my air-conditioned office talking to you guys about how great my life is. All right. And again, by the way, this is also something that I've seen through my years. I'm sure you guys as well, how so many people out there that have a lot of money, or have money, have wealth, have whatever it is, right? A lot of those people are just the unhappiest. They just are. And you see, especially when you travel and you go around to other places around the world and you see people that don't have much or just have enough and they're so happy and so great. And trust me, I'm one of those. I have just enough. And my God, you know what I mean? Like, I'm a billion times happier than, again, in the US, sure, I struggled a lot, but I also made money. I had my, ups and downs. But all I'm saying is that, I've never been this happy consistently for so long. You know what I mean? Until I came to Mexico. And I got my ups and downs here too. It is what it is, but it's just very different. It's just, yeah, anyways. So, all right, enough. That's my rant. Shout out to me, right? Anyways. Bruh. Shout out to D-Mao as well for the $10 super chat. Thank you so much. You just bought me tacos for tomorrow. Because tomorrow's Friday, date night. It's been a long week. Been working a lot. So I appreciate that. So, between you and, the $10 and what else? It was $2, right? And the $2 from Henry. We got enough for dinner tomorrow. All right. At the taco stand. If someone donates $5 more, we can go to the really nice taco restaurant down the street. But at least for now, we got enough for the tacos, down the street, the taco stand. But anywho's, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Shout out to all of you. All right, let me see. Got any questions? You got DW saying, hey, dude, how are you? I used to go to Merida every year with my parents as a kid. We lived in Belize at the time. Oh, it's awesome. That was during the 80s. Loved that place. Yeah, man. Yeah. Definitely changed since then. But yeah, it's awesome out here. I love it. Oh, thank you, Boogie. All right. Anyways, as I was reading that message. Bruh. Shout out to you guys. Anyways, I'm reading a few comments here. Let me see. No, don't worry. You're never late, guys. You can always rewind. Shout out to everyone out there. Really appreciate it. But yeah, guys, that's the thing. It's like at the end of the day, these are things that you got to consider, meaning that, for example, if you want to move out here and you want a nice house, listen, I had a friend of mine, a few friends of mine that have moved out here around my age, and they got kids, 6 kids, 3 kids, all kinds, okay? Oh, anywho's. And they'll rent a nice, amazing mini mansion, for like 1,500 a month, 1,700 a month. A home that in the USA is going to be like $7,000 a month, something like that, in a very nice, affluent neighborhood. So yeah, because I remember, when I first went to his house, I was like blown away by that home. And I was like, bro, how much are you renting this for, bro? I mean, and he told me, and I was like, nah, you're fucking with me. Sorry, you're effing with me, man. What do you mean you're only paying, like, again, 30,000 pesos or whatever the hell he told me? It was like, they're 35, whatever it is. It was under $2,000, I'll tell you that. And, for the kind of home he had, bro, come on. And if I had all, the kids and all that, everything. I mean, no, yeah, of course, I would definitely get a home like that. But, I know people, like I said, they got homes similar to me, paying like $700, and everything in between. But you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck out here. I'll tell you that. So, honestly, the reality is that, around, again, for a nice house with a lot of bells and whistles, that you might be used to from back in the USA, it's going to be around $1,000. All right, if you want a nice house. With that being said, you got to also consider that, most of the time, if you're going to rent, especially a home like that, again, you're going to come with the multiple deposits and the lawyer fees and stuff like that. So, yeah, sure, it's $1,000 a month per se, right? Let's just say it's $1,000 a month, right? But to get in the door, you need $1,000 first month. You need a deposit. Oh, by the way, hit the likes if you haven't already. Anyways, $1,000, $2,000 for the first deposit, second deposit, because again, most people don't have an aval, which is just a co-signer. All right, I don't want to get into all that because nobody has it. So again, this is how it works out here. I know other parts of Mexico are different. Not all times you're going to be asked for double deposit, but just you got to prepare. You never know. So again, right off the bat, it's $3,000 plus the lawyer fees, which could vary. It could be, $300. All right, but right off the bat, so just expect maybe $3,500. And so, whoa, that's expensive. But that's just what it is. I mean, it's just that, again, some parts of Mexico, you can just rent the same equivalent place for maybe less deposit, meaning just one deposit, and so on and so forth. But that's the thing, guys. I mean, it's very different. You don't need that kind of home. You don't need to be that kind of deposit. But even this home right here, which again, when I rented this home, and I signed the lease, it was when I had a favorable exchange rate, and long story short, it was like around $650, so $650 a month. So 650 plus 650, that's 13, plus 650, all right, that's already 1950, that's 20, that's like $1,000, all right, a little over $1,000, right, just to get in. All right, so if my math is right, yeah, anyways, no, is my math right? No, yeah, my math is wrong. Sorry. Anyways, so 650 times 3 is how much? That's 18, almost 20. So no, what am I saying? Well, what am I? Sorry. My God, sorry. I'm having a brain fart. Yeah, because I keep thinking in pesos in my head. Hold on a second. 650 times 3. My math obviously is not. Okay, so it's $2,000, right? Plus the lawyer fees, so like a little over $2,000, like 2,300, give or take. That's what I had to spend. Just to move into this place. Plus, I had to spend, money. By the way, that's why we had to save money. And again, at the other place, we didn't have that much rent, and we had, a lot less expenses compared to here. In some aspects, not every aspect. We're saving money in many aspects here in this house. Anywho's, but we were able to save some money, and so that allowed us to, move here. But again, when we moved here, we needed certain things like furniture and this and that, and then eventually, So that's the thing, guys. I mean? There's like many things you got to consider. The reality is that remember when I was telling you guys earlier, the first places that I rented, those places were furnished. Many times, a lot of you guys on a certain, what is it, on a fixed income or with a certain income, just a small income every month. Then when you're also going to be probably needing a place that's furnished. You know, once you get established, once you're out here, you know, eventually you can get upgrade constant, you know. But again, some of you guys can, you know, get what you want right off the bat when you move here. So it really just depends, you know, kind of what your situation is at. All Day Vapor says, I can't afford to donate. Oh, don't worry, man. It's okay. But I do support the channel by leaving your videos play overnight so you can rack up the ad revenue. Oh, why, thank you very much, All Day Vapor. That is very nice of you. I appreciate that. That helps a lot. It helps a lot more than you would think. In fact, some might even say it helps more than a donation. So thank you. I appreciate that. Any kind of help, any kind of support to keep the show going. Look at me. Look, there's Lambo. Anyway, so everything is appreciated. So thank you. Oh, that's right. Another thing is that when you're renting out here, you don't need a credit check. There's no background check. You know, there's no nothing like that. You know what I mean? It's just simply you got the cash. You got the cash. You got the keys. So that's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And so that's the thing. You know what I mean? It's a very different country. You know, different lifestyle, different pace of life. Things are a lot slower out here. They're more relaxed out here. And that's it. And that's the thing. Obviously, the more Spanish you know, the better. You don't need to know fluent Spanish. But it helps for many reasons. For many aspects. Now, hold on a second. No Amazon delivery yet. All right, but anyways, how long we've been streaming? Oh wow, over an hour. All right. So what we're gonna do now is, well, do you guys have any questions, anything, any comments, anything to ask me? I'm gonna go on ahead and put the cost of living up. You know, enough of me enjoying my amazing life out here. You know, just typical day, going out fishing, typical afternoon there. You know, this could be you guys. All right, that could be you. That's the life, you know, the horrible life, you know, how to live out here. So, you know, Mexico so bad. Rough, very rough. All right. So anyways, enough of that. All right. So, but yeah, you know, these are the expenses. You know, I'm going to put them up on screen there, you know, as we kind of, you know, start wrapping this up. But again, if you have any questions, any comments, you know, go on ahead. And by the way, these are my expenses. Your expenses could be a lot less. It's all going to depend on various factors. As you see, the biggest expense that you're going to have is your rent and how much food or what kind of food you eat. But reality is that you can cut those two in half. All right. So, you know, your rent could be $300 or $350 and your food could be $250, you know, $300. And, you know, right there, it'll be like around $1,000, give or take. So Sergio says, my pension is 4 times that amount and I can barely make it in California. The taxes, insurance, yeah, that's terrible. No, I know, man. You don't got to tell me. Do Americans working legally in Mexico get double taxed? They do not. So you have your choice of who you want to pay tax to, the US or Mexico. And that's it. And again, it all depends. I mean, like taxes are very similar out here to the USA. So just depends on what kind of, you know, how you're doing your taxes. Again, if you have a regular job, then it's kind of like similar as the USA where, you know, they take your taxes out and then you got to, you know, do your taxes to get the money back. Or, but again, you get more benefits here because some of that money off your paycheck goes for Infonavit. Infonavit is like a housing fund. So that's why a lot of people get homes out here. You know, because they just get a regular job and they're constantly, you know, putting money into the Infonavit. And, you know, by the time they're like 30 years old or 25 years old, you know, 26 years old, you know, and they got their sweetheart pregnant and they need a home, they can get a home. So, but anyways, but that's why some people put up with working a job. But a lot of people are in the informal business. So they can get away from taxes and so on and so forth. So there's, you know, it just depends on what your situation is. But yeah, look, at the end of the day, you're going to be paying taxes to Uncle Sam, you know, it's a whole thing. So Let me see. I'm reading some comments. Shout out to everyone out there. By the way, Boogie Fudge says, oh, you want to meet up with me. So if you want to meet up with me, that's a paid consultation as well. So again, all the fees, are on my website. So there's a fee, for, a Zoom meeting. That's the most affordable rate. But if you want to get me out of my cave and, get me out to wherever you want me to go to, pay for the Uber, spend hours with you and doing whatever, even if it's just buying me a beer, well, there's a fee for that too. Okay. Otherwise, you can just hang out in the city and hopefully you'll see me walking around doing a video one day and just say hi. Or you can come to one of the events, which, a lot of times I'm at or whatever. You can do that and then you can just see me for free, say hi, whatever. So, let me see. We're just reading a few comments. But anyway, shout out to everyone out there. Really appreciate it. But yeah, guys, at the end of the day, I think, for a lot of you guys, it's still going to be very doable, very affordable to move out here and live a very, very comfortable life. And, and then for some of you guys, it's just, you're going to have to put some work into it like I did, but it's definitely doable. It's up to you. It's just like, how bad do you want that freedom? How bad do you want to, live in a different country, get away from all that craziness? How bad do you want to embrace, all that stuff? And again, you got to remember, I moved out to Mexico. I had my reasons for moving out to Mexico. I've already established myself here, got my roots set up here, and so on and so forth. So I'm here. And I'm not transitory or anything like that. And I know some people are. We've discussed that, we again, that already. But at the end of the day, it's like, what are you looking for? What do you want? And there's many countries out there. That's one thing that, we're all realizing in one shape, form, or another. There are many countries out there that have, very different options. Some of you guys, it might be better off to move to Europe. I've heard great things about Europe. Again, it just depends on what you're willing to put up with or not want weather-wise. There's many things, language, etc., etc. So long story short, Latin America is the top choice these days. Mexico is obviously one of the better choices, but there's, Paraguay, there's Colombia, there's Uruguay, there's, Costa Rica, El Salvador. I can go on and on. And, some of you guys, I think Nicaragua, someone lives out there. I don't know, where was it? Someone told me it was Ecuador. I don't know. So it just depends on, what you're looking for, what you want, what kind of life you want. And so look, at the end of the day, why am I happy here where I'm at? Because I got the life that I've always wanted that I never was able to get in the USA. And on top of that, it meets a lot of other requirements like the weather that I like, because again, I'm a Florida guy. I'm originally from Miami, Florida. So the weather here is very similar. I got the beaches, just a short drive away. And for me, that's the life. I want to live there. I don't want to live in a mountain. I don't want to live where it's cold. I've been there. It's not my cup of tea. So some people want colder weather. Some people want 105 degrees. I want 105 degrees, so I can enjoy my cold beer and get in the ocean or in a cenote or in the pool or whatever. It's not for everybody. So you got to remember that, it's hot out here, but I enjoy hot. A lot of people move to Florida, don't they? Isn't Florida, one of the places the most people are moving to in the USA? It's just as hot as it is here. So when people complain about how hot it is, I always laugh because it's like, it's the same as Florida. You know what I mean? Like, don't go to Florida. You know what I mean? You already know it's hot. You know what I mean? It's going to be hot here too. And the same thing, there's, the majority of Mexicans, like 75% of Mexicans live in colder weather. Okay? 75% of Mexicans live in the mountains. They live in cool weather. That's why they wear those ponchos and all that. They don't, you know what I mean? I live on the beach, man. I live like, Cancun's like a few hours away from here. So, I live in paradise. I got palm trees. So, yeah, very different. And, but anyway, this is what I prefer, but it's not for everybody. That's the thing. So, anyways. But yeah, I mean, I know not people. I know people are not moving into Florida. That's why they're moving here. I'm fully aware. I mean, people are still moving there, but not as much as before because it's also unaffordable. I can go. I mean, so. But that's the thing, there are many places out there. Some people like Puerto Vallarta, some people like Puerto Escondido, some people want to be in Oaxaca City, some people want to be in Mexico City, some people want to be in Lake Chapala, some people want to be in La Paz, some people want to be in, Guadalajara, whatever. So Rosarito. Yeah, again, a lot of people love the Baja area. I got friends up in Ensenada, Rosarito, Tijuana, La Paz, But that's not my kind of weather. You know what I mean? Like I've been there, and I like it here. I used to live in L.A. I've been to San Diego. I've been to Tijuana. It's nice. It's great. But it's too cold for me. As crazy as that sounds. So. And by the way, the heat can be a lot. The heat can even be overwhelming for me as well. But it's the same thing as people live in cold weather. People live in cold weather. Sometimes, people living in Buffalo, New York, sometimes that snow can be a bit much. Not always, but, even, again, when it's a bit much, they'll go to a football game, they'll go shovel some snow, they'll throw each other through some tables. We don't do that here, but, we do the equivalent, Well, like I said, we'll go to the beach, we'll go to a underground watering hole, we'll go to the waterfall. But go to the pool, whatever it is. So, and yeah, it is what it is. So, I agree, Sergio. A lot of Americans can't afford to live in the United States anymore. They're looking elsewhere, looking at other countries. But that's the thing. You better start looking now. You better start planning now because as time moves on, it's gonna get to a point where all countries are gonna be too expensive. The dollar's gonna lose its value. You're not gonna be able to just leave. You're not gonna be able to, get that plane ticket. So many things like that. So you gotta the sooner you can plan, the sooner you can get out, the better. So, but that's the thing, though. At the end of the day, it's doable. Most Americans that live out here, and even most middle-class families out here, middle-class Mexican families, they spend a lot more than this a month. Closer to $2,000 a month. But again, some people more, some people less. I know a lot of people out there in the audience that spend a lot less than this, that, live on around $1,000 a month, give or take. So, and anywho's, let me see. All right. Yeah, the dollar's crashing already. It's been crashing for a while. It's not going to just happen overnight. It's happening slowly but surely. We talk about it a lot in my other channel. So, look at that. Nancy's like, my mom is from Monterrey. I got over the heat thing. I don't like it, but I guess if you live there, you get used to it. Yeah, that's the thing. See, look, I'd rather live by a beach. If I'm gonna live in the heat, I definitely want a beach. I don't want to be living in a desert. So, again, it's different. By the way, I wonder how far the beach is from Monterrey. But anywho's. So it is what it is. All right, guys. Well, we're over an hour now. I don't know what else to say. I think we've said enough, talked about enough, showing you guys numbers, kind of, giving you a rough estimate. But, at the end of the day, the reality is that, you got to plan accordingly. It's like anything else. You're going to be moving to a different country. It's like if you're moving even to the other side of town, even if you're moving to another state, you're going to spend money. On many things, moving expenses, plane tickets, gasoline, you name it, right? So you gotta take all that into consideration. Everyone's different. Some people have more expenses than others. You gotta, again, plan ahead, plan accordingly, and just realize that, Mexico is not as affordable as it used to be, but at the end of the day, it's still a lot more affordable than whatever you got in the USA. And so you just got to consider that. And, the sooner you can lock it in out here, the better. All right. Whether it's residency, place to live, so on and so forth. So that's right. I had a $200 apartment. And by the way, you can still get $200. There are many places in Mexico. All right. like many, like in Tijuana and many places, man, where you can still get, you know, apartments, and you can get small, you know, again, just anything to at least lay, you know, a roof over your head for around 250, 200, 300. So even here in this city, you know, I did a video not that long ago. Here, let me get it real quick. No, wait, hold on. Sorry, let me get that video real quick. But yeah, I did a video here not that long ago. For very affordable. Let me see. Where was it? Where is it? Oh, there it is. No. I'm gonna show it to you real quick here. So this place, how much was it? I think it was like 350 bucks or 325 bucks or something like that. Hold on, let me see. I'll tell you right now how much it was. Oh wait, you know, the video will tell you how much it was. I forgot. How much it is. But anyway, see, look, $325 a month, all right? And it's a 2-bedroom furnished apartment in El Centro. You know, the market that we were walking in at the beginning of the video, it's like, you know, walking distance from here, from this apartment. All right. Do you need residency to buy precious metals? If you, no, you can buy precious metals in the market or from private dealers, or, you know, from, you know, many other places. If you want to buy it from the bank, these days, I think you need to be a citizen. Back in the day, no ID, no nothing, you could buy anything you wanted. But long story short, yeah, these days you need to be a citizen to buy it from the bank, but you can still buy silver and gold at the markets. Again, in that video where I did with the market, we went through the gold and silver and all that stuff. So now I'll show you in a second. I just want to show you this apartment so you can get an idea. So, you know, this apartment here is, again, 325 bucks, and it's already rented out. But again, just to give you an idea of like how, you know, what you can get out here for a few bucks. So, yeah, the place is already rented though. You know, as soon as the video went up, it got rented immediately. Obviously. But yeah, so it's like a nice normal little kitchen. There's a little, you got a bathroom there, you got a closet, you got a bedroom upstairs, another bedroom, whatever. All right. So, but yeah, I mean, you know, it's a little weird, it's a little awkward, it's a little, but you know what? Who cares? It's a freaking home that, you know, you can live comfortably in for, you know, 350 bucks, you know, or whatever, you know, whatever the exchange rate is. So, okay, so here in the market, you know, right at the beginning, we went through, there you go, see? So you can go to places like that, you know, buy gold and silver there from the shop. You know, many shops. There's tons of places like this, okay? So, do they still have $200 apartments in Medina? Yeah, you can find them. They're out there. Yeah, they're out there. You got to do some digging. You know, you can probably, you know, ask Alejandra to help you locate one of those for a price. But yeah, she can help you out. I mean, it might be closer to 300, man, honestly. You know, I don't know what you can really get for under that, you know, 300, but I'm sure maybe you can find something out there in the hood, you know, but I mean, come on. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, you know what I mean? Like 350, come on, man. What that you don't have 350? If you don't have 350, don't move out here, okay? I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, I think like around 300, 350, you can definitely find, like I said, again, maybe not in Merida, but other places, I know for sure in other parts of Mexico, they have 200 or less. But out here, you know, it might be a difficult find these days. But definitely, again, I just showed one right there in the middle of El Centro for, again, 325. So, and again, depending on the exchange rate, it might be 300, you know, so. But I think that's it, guys. So, I'm going to wrap it up. Anyways, guys, I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me today. Thank you so much, you know, for all the love. Thank you so much for the donations. You know, thank you so much for everything. I will see you guys here. You guys already know on Sunday, I got a special video. I went on an adventure, and well, I got a special video for you guys on Sunday. And let's see what comes up on Tuesday. I still haven't don't have a video for Tuesday, but let's see what's up. Maybe I can, you know, figure something out for Tuesday. And otherwise, you know, I'll see you here Thursday. As you guys know, every Thursday we like to get together and talk about whatever. So, and again, if you really enjoy my conversations and you're not too afraid of going very deep down the rabbit hole here, you know, you can definitely check out my other channel. Where on my other channel, you can, you know, check out everything I have to say. One second here. So again, on my other channel, you know, it's going very well over there, getting a lot of love, a lot of views from you guys, from other places. But anyways, long story short, I upload there Monday through Friday. If you're interested, you can go check that out. And hopefully I don't offend anybody. If you're easily offended, perhaps don't check it out. But if you want to go deeper, go check that channel out. I think you'll thoroughly enjoy it. Either way, I'm always here on this channel. You guys already know. And I think that's it. Check out my website for more information, all kinds of free information. Check out my YouTube page. As I mentioned earlier, don't forget, again, if you want to buy a t-shirt, you know, we got the t-shirts for sale. And if you need a book, you know, the Foreign Investors Legal Guide to Owning Real Estate in Mexico, the link's down below, alongside a $5 coupon code, and so on and so forth. And I think that's it. I think we're gonna wrap it up. So love you guys. I appreciate you guys. And again, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Have an amazing weekend, and see you guys here on the next one. Bye, guys.